eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Guys, nice to see you. It's been so long. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to Polarity. My name is Josh, and we are good to go this time. Sorry about that. That was my bad. I thought I had checked everything, but I hadn't. Some little audio issues, but we are back. And this is going to be one of 5 to 6 videos where we're digging into the secrets of S4 this week. Largely looking at Bob Dean, which in the last live stream, he spoke about a portal that goes from S4 over to Pine Gap. And basically that comes from like hours of archival goldmine of footage. And that's what we're going to be starting to dig into today. In this video, so in today's section, we're looking at Bob Dean, Wendell Stevens, Phil Schneider, and Bob Lazar, okay? And also probably going to be touching on a whistleblower that was used to remove people for the CIA. And as I said, I'm going to guess that about 85% of people have never seen this stuff before because it is wild. Even I'd never seen most of it before. It's pretty crazy stuff. It all comes from the archives and we love it. So to give you guys a little bit of context, let's jump over here. And to set this show up today, I want to show you a little clip from Reality Check with Ross Coulter. About 6 to 7 weeks ago, he interviewed a guy called Tom Dongo, who is famous for doing work at Bradshaw Ranch, which is basically very similar to Skinwalker Ranch, same kind of deal. And he spoke about Bob Dean. He spoke about Wendell Stevens. And I just thought it was really interesting to hear those kind of names, considering we're about to go back in time about 30 odd years and dig right into all of that strangeness. So once again, thank you all for being here, weirdos. I appreciate you. Now let's jump into this first clip from Ross and Tom Dongo.
So you're telling me that you're in touch with people in the military,
yes,
who actually know that
they're all retired now.
Because this is an allegation that a former intelligence officer, David Grush, only made in 2023.
Yeah, right.
That the US is in possession of non-human technology.
Yeah.
Now, you realise the Pentagon has formally denied that they've got any possession of any such technology. You think that's a lie?
Yes. Until they're caught red-handed with evidence, they're going to continue to deny it.
Why would they deny it?
Well, you know, the explanation was given to me that if people knew that there were an extraterrestrial race was real, they were really here, and they are. I've met 3. Then our government, the U.S. government, would be powerless against these. There'd be another power, a higher power than the government, and the government doesn't want to lose their influence, their control.
Now, it's my job at this point to be doubtful. You realise?
Oh, sure.
It's funny when Ross like pretends to play the skeptic.
There's no evidence of that, is there?
No. Well, if there is, it's been disappeared. You know, if there is evidence, that one of my better friends was an Army colonel, and he investigated 6 crashes, like Roswell, and he knew of 5 others that he investigated. He showed me the evidence, the photographs, the witnesses. This is a guy that got witness. It's Colonel Wendell Stevens. He's famous. He was one of my best friends, and so
he was one of the early Blue Book people, wasn't he? Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then Bob Dean, Sergeant Major Bob Dean. He was one of my best friends, and those 2 guys between them, they had some phenomenal, real experiences.
Colonel Wendell Stevens, was he telling you that the United States was in possession of non-human craft?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So he told you that directly?
Yes. Because he was directly involved in several. He said there was a string. The first one was Roswell, and there were a string of them that went up to Kingman, Arizona. There were about 5 crashes, and he was directly involved in the last one, and it was actually near Kingman.
Hear a lot about that recently, don't we? A lot of people are talking about the crash at Kingman. But there we go. I wanted to just show you guys that just so you could see Ross and Tom Dongo talking about the subject of today's video. And this is all about Project Red Light, which is essentially everything that was behind kind of the, I guess, the formation of S4 and what it was going to be used for. But I think we should just get pretty much straight into it. A few people saying there's maybe a couple of issues with the stream, but hopefully that is just a you problem and not me, because if it's a me problem, it's an everyone problem, and we don't like that. But let's get straight into it, guys. This is going to be, we're going to hear from the start about how Wendell Stevens and Bob Dean kind of met, and then we're going to get into the history of S4 and all the crazy stuff about it.
What were the first words that you guys said, or where did you run into each other for the very first time?
In the front of his house or mine, he said, I understand you're Air Force. I said, yeah. He said, I'm Army. And he said he was retired, and I was retired, so we got to visiting each other.
When I retired from the military in 1976, I bought a house in Tucson. I retired from the Presidio of San Francisco, where I had been a command sergeant major there at 6th Army headquarters. Bought a house in Tucson. Moved to Tucson, so help me. The house I moved into was directly across the street from Wendell Stevens. Talk about coincidence.
That's kind of wild, right? Bob Dean and Wendell Stevens just happened to move across the road from each other.
So, our friendship blossomed more.
At that time, I was working for the sheriff's department. He was a deputy sheriff, and he was bringing a staff car home at night, parking it in his garage. But he fascinated me because he had been to Japan, and he got interested in the Japanese swords. And he had a nice collection of swords on the wall in his house. We used to just get together and drink beer in either his yard or mine and talk.
So whenever we were together, when we were in the same town, we would share information. As I said, we were both part of APRO for many years, until Coral and Jim died, and we had to put APRO to bed. We both had learned the reality of the extraterrestrial presence, and I think that's kept us good, close friends for years. And I've known him and considered him a good and dear friend for many years. We have a lot in common, particularly this interest in the phenomenon, as people like to refer to, so-called alien presence. I hate the word UFO. I just don't like to use it, because it's...
If you're having any issues, guys, just try and restart the stream. Just hit refresh.
So silly. It doesn't really say anything. We're talking about a presence of extraterrestrial intelligence on planet Earth. And Wendell and I share that view. His mail, as you probably have heard him say, was monitored very closely. Mine was too, by a matter of fact. His telephone line was bugged. My telephone was bugged. Just being members of APRO, I think, being on the board.
If anyone who doesn't know, APRO was like the first kind of, I guess, public-facing open research group for UFOs. I think it was started in, I'm going to say like 1958 or something like that, in the 50s. And it was Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, I think. But yeah, this was like the OG, I guess maybe MUFON you could compare it to. But super interesting. That's what Bob Dean was involved in.
Attracted attention from whoever shall remain nameless, but somebody bugged our phones, monitored our mail, and let me tell you something. They attempted to threaten me a number of times over the years, particularly when I came out of the closet, so to speak. And
odd choice of words. Guys, a lot of people are saying the stream's bugged. Look, it's probably CIA interference. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what it is. Look, I don't really change any settings in between my streams, obviously. Like, once it works, I just leave it. But sometimes there are problems and sometimes there isn't. I don't really know what it is, and I don't know how to fix it, unfortunately. But if it's a real bad problem for you, just try to refresh it. And if it's not fixing it, you might just have to come and watch it after the fact.
Again, speaking publicly and openly about what I had seen and what I had learned, there were attempts to intimidate me and threaten me. And I threatened right back. Wendell was an officer and a gentleman. I had been a commissioned officer for some years before. When I was in Korea, I was a an infantry officer. But after the RIF 1956, reduction in force, I reverted back to an enlisted grade and worked my way up to command sergeant major, and I was a grunt. I was an infantry officer. I was a field soldier, and I carried a gun, and still do. I don't have one on me at the moment, but, I carry guns. And when I was threatened, I threatened right back. And I think my first marriage went on the rocks because of my involvement with the UFO field.
Bob Dean sounds like someone you wouldn't want to mess with, right? I love it how he's saying they threatened him and he threatened right back. Like this dude was like a soldier on the ground in Vietnam. Like that's the kind of dude we're talking about here, which is interesting, right? Because I mean, the modern whistleblowers that you would see, maybe a lot of them probably haven't had that actual frontline type of experience that Bob's saying that he has. And he's saying that his marriage went on the rocks, which is interesting because me and Reese were just talking the other day saying how this field can be very isolating, it's a lonely road. It's a lonely road, that's for sure.
My first wife, my son's mother, was scared to death with the whole subject. Because I said we had our phone bugged and our mail was disturbed. We were followed in traffic many times. Oh, they had a repertoire of little processes where they intimidated you. The phone calls probably were the worst. As I said, my first wife, I think our marriage went on the rocks because of the UFO field. But I was not easily intimidated. Having been an infantry soldier and being a grunt, both in Korea and Vietnam, I was not the kind to take kindly to someone trying to threaten me. And I put it out publicly. If you mess with me, bear in mind that I'm packing. I carry a gun.
Bob Dean is strapped. Bob Dean is strapped. You got to love him, right? You got to love him. I feel like just the way he carries himself, the way he speaks, the way he comes across, I've always been sort of, magnetically drawn to what he has to say. I love listening to Bob Dean. So if anyone who doesn't know, that's Bob Dean or Robert Dean. He was a command sergeant and held the highest security clearance available in NATO, which was called Cosmic Top Secret, which is so high it sounds fake. Like Cosmic Top Secret sounds like if it's from a movie, but it's not. You can look, it's on the NATO website. You can go and look it up. So here we go. Now we're going to get into the history of Area 51 and Project Red Light.
Of Area 51 taken by a Russian satellite passing overhead. Yeah, first of all,
and this is Wendell Stevens.
It's the Atomic Energy Commission area. The Navy had a Navy auxiliary airfield there that had arrestor gear on the runways that they practiced carrier landings on. And that's all it was. I used to stop there and get gas when I was ferrying aircraft across the country because the gas trucks were always sitting there and they were not used very much. And I could get gas immediately. There was a little snack bar right at the operations center where I filed my flight clearance. And I'd take off and leave in a short time.
Was that Groom Lake?
That was Groom Lake Auxiliary Naval Airfield. And the last time I stopped there, I was coming from Troutdale, Oregon, going to Oklahoma City with a small trainer that a fixed base operator had bought 10 of them from the surplus from up there. And I was ferrying it through, and when I landed, they wanted a copy of my special orders. I told them, what special orders? They said, you can't land here without special orders. And I said, well, I always landed here for gas. And they said, well, you have to have special orders now. And they did give me gas, but made me leave right away and made me understand that I can't come back.
What year was that, roughly?
That was in the early 50s. Later, I began to hear about a Project Red Light going on.
Wasn't it 54 that Phil Schneider said was the alien-human treaty? 54, I believe, was the year, which is interesting because that's about the time where things seem to have gotten a bit compartmentalized, is a way to say it.
Lake. And when I tried to get information on Project Red Light, that was so secret that nothing was available. But I was doing a lecture at Oakland, California, when I mentioned Project Red Light, and the fact that they closed the base, nobody knows what they were doing there. And a guy came up out of the audience afterwards, talked to me. He said, I was a technical sergeant in the medical corps in the hospital detachment. He told me that when Groom Lake Auxiliary Airfield was closed, they brought in the reinforced CB battalion. They closed everything but the base engineers and the hospital. And the hospital served the reinforced CB battalion until they were almost through working, and then they brought in a hospital team to take over the hospital. But during the 2 years that they were servicing, they heard scuttlebutt about what they were doing. They took up the runway, they took down buildings and put up camouflage netting to make it look like nothing had changed. And when they got through, they put the buildings and the runway back. And that sergeant thought that they had only put extra facilities under the runway and some under the ramp, the parking ramp. But he never knew how big it was or anything. And that's all I had for some time until I found at another lecture like that, a man came up to me, said that he was working in the CB battalion. He was a tech sergeant engineer, project engineer. And he told me about digging the 4 levels. And then they started putting the runway all back together again above. But he said that within those 4 levels, they prepared a habitat that had a controllable atmosphere in it. But he said that the CB battalion only dug the hole in the ground and laid some foundations. Then they brought in other contractors to put the facilities in on top of the foundations and finish it and put the runway back. So nobody...
Again, like even in the construction, it's so compartmentalized. Everyone's just got one job, which is like when you're constructing a deep underground military base or something with so many moving parts, you must have, like, that's such a big operation. You've got to have so many people involved, all as well probably signing NDAs and things like that. Like, it's crazy how much would have to go on behind the scenes and how many people would have to be kept silent for these things to go. I missed a $2 from my man Toxic Fart. Nice to see you here, sir. It's 6:30 a.m. and the stream is still laggy. I hope that problem is fixed for you, my man. And we did get a tenner from Rusty, who did not leave a message. Rusty, if that was a mistake, I'll try and look for you in the chat, but thank you, my man. I appreciate the support.
Ever had the whole project. It was always parceled out like that.
And that was the Groom Lake project,
That was
Area
Groom Lake.
51
That
now.
was Area 51.
The most infamous and notorious secret military site in the world.
Here we go. This part here, that's kind of like an audio-visual essay, is a knowledge bomb.
Area 51 at Groom Lake, Nevada. A restricted government site that guzzles down black budget funds, hidden in plain sight, exotic, dangerous, highly classified. Parts of the complex require Q-30 clearance or higher. Above top secret and deadly, and may be controlled not just by human beings. Testimony.
Sorry, what? May be controlled by not just human beings? Okay.
Suggest that beings not of this earth may even share control of the base. Area 51 was originally constructed in 1955, 1 year after the Edwards and Holloman treaties in 1954 were arranged, clandestinely, in utmost secrecy, between officials in the U.S. government and off-world beings who possessed highly advanced technologies that lured in the lusty, weapons-minded military brass. Originally known as Watertown Strip in 1955.
Someone says you're never going to hear from the S4 plumber. There's no leaks there. I respect that. Nice. Well done. Thank you.
After CIA Director Alan Dulles' hometown, the growing base was later dubbed Paradise Ranch, now simply the Ranch. The 575 square mile rectangle of land was officially designated Area 51 outside the control of our 50 states by the Atomic Energy Commission in June 1958. The Area 51 control tower identifies itself as Dreamland in radio communications and warns off all aircraft from flying over the box, its forbidden airspace known officially as R4808N. Some insiders have even dubbed Area 51 the dark side of the moon. The town of Rachel, Nevada, with its population of just around 200 people, is known for the Little Alien restaurant, complete with its own UFO video and book library for patrons and visitors from all corners of the world. Just to the west of Rachel is a backgate guard entrance to the Nellis Bombing and Gunnery Range, 8 million acres large, inside whose boundaries is Area 51. The townsfolk of Rachel can see the 9,000-foot bald mountain peak just to the south, which is capped with an observation and communications facility directly connected with Area 51. Highway 375 runs through Rachel and along the northeastern perimeter of restricted land, which was officially dedicated in the mid-1990s as the Extraterrestrial Highway, a twisting 98-mile stretch of single-lane road, absent of gasoline stations anywhere. Amid the Joshua trees and cactus and tumbleweeds of Tikaboo Valley lives a generations-old cattle ranching family. The ranchers are known for their famous black mailbox, which marks the commencement of a dirt road between mileposts 29 and 30 that...
Apologies, camera overheated. We're getting all the problems in today's stream, but hey, that's the nature of it. You just got to roll with the punches. That's life. Sometimes things don't go as planned. What are you going to do? Cry about it? No, you just got to get on with it. Has anybody been... Like, who in the chat's been to Area 51? Who's seen this black mailbox? I know this is kind of like a famous part of the Area 51 tour. A lot of you guys know I'm trying to get out there next year. Hopefully sometime around this time next year, I'll be in the States and I'm planning to go to Area 51. But I think I'm just going to do it myself. I don't want to do like a tour or anything. I want to get out there myself. So I want to hear from anyone who has been there, and is it something you can just do yourself rather than pay for a tour? I'm interested. Let me know.
Leads toward their ranch, and also towards Groom Lake just beyond to the southwest. A little farther southeast on Highway 375, between mileposts 34 and 35, Groom Lake Road begins its trail across the desert floor of Tikaboo Valley toward Jumbled Hills. Almost every morning, buses with blacked-out windows carrying Area 51 workers speed along to the top-secret facilities by way of the Groom Lake Road. The perimeter of Area 51 shares a border with the Yucca Flat region of the Nevada test site, where over 900 atomic tests have been conducted since 1951. Beginning in July 1962, all its atomic detonations were exploded underground, but for what purpose remains unclear. The Area 51 land is managed by the 99th Air Base Wing at Nellis Air Force Base. However, Area 51 is also an adjunct to Edwards Air Force Base Flight Test Center, which appears to have control of operations at Groom Lake. And just...
The mailbox has been removed? Is that true? I don't think that's true, is it? Because I was looking up stuff recently and I saw people talking about it, unless maybe it's been replaced. I'm not sure.
40 miles southwest of Groom Lake is the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Storage Facility. Groom Lake is a dry salt lake located in Emigrant Valley north of the Papoose Mountain Range, and Area 51 is on Groom Lake's southern shore. In 1995, federal land grabs have expanded the scope of the base and eliminated certain mountaintop viewing spots for civilians, including Whitesides Mountain and Freedom Ridge, despite substantial public outcry. Intruders are subject to the use of deadly force, which was supposedly authorized under the terms of the 1950 McCarran Internal Security Act.
Team Polarity storm Mount Zeal. I'm down for a little Mount Zeal trip. Hopefully we make it back, but I'm down for it. We had a $5 come in from Robert. Says, Josh, thanks for bringing it to Rochester, New York, brother. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you, bro. And Cody Robinson with another $5 says, I love getting out of work to a Polarity video. It's 7 a.m. in Michigan. Damn, you've been doing the night shift. Keep doing what you're doing. You will be a household name in no time. Thank you, Cody. I appreciate you. And another tenner just came in. Camera fund thing. You love your work, bloke. Yeah, look, the camera is in need of an upgrade. That's for sure. At least it doesn't really do well in the heat, which is a problem because it's cold here.
Enforcing security are hired personnel from Wackenhut and Sandia security companies, along with a contingent of Navy SEALs and Delta Force. Black Hawk.
Okay, I know it's been a bit of a kind of a knowledge bomb so far, maybe a lot to take in, and obviously we've been battling a few issues at the same time, but it's going to start talking about something important here, so let's try to focus up on this bit. It's going to get a little bit less monotonous soon.
And Sikorsky helicopters, Jeeps and Humvees patrol constantly, seeking out intruders using every technology at their disposal. The ranch, as insiders know it, is the most protected known base on the planet's surface. And
those badges look familiar. You guys remember it was about like a month or two ago, we did that deep dive into the badges, and then I found that book with all of the badges in it, that wild book. I can't remember what it was called. It was called like I Could Tell You, but then I'd have to kill you or something like that. Super interesting. And it actually shows quite a few of the badges that were in there, and a huge $30 chat from Sudi, and says donation to put towards a new camera, bro. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Thank you very much. That's a massive super chat. I appreciate your support.
Its personnel are required to take a lifetime oath of secrecy. Area 51 is likely run by the United States Navy, even while it appears the Air Force maintains operations out of Edwards Air Force Base in California. Incoming flights come from several key installations, all directed by the control tower, situated about 1/4 mile northeast of an enormous 100-foot tall hangar, suspected of housing a giant elevator that can lower heavy tonnage aircraft down.
Bechtel. Does anybody know this company, Bechtel? Because I obviously kind of scanned over this today. I didn't watch it like properly because I kind of wanted to watch it and talk about it with you guys. But this Bechtel company, I'd never heard of before, and they control everything. They seem to control everything. It's kind of crazy. Wow. 20 pounds from Mish with no message, but Mish, thank you. That's a huge super chat. And Mr. Sweaty Big Toe with $20 as well for the setup. Or Suki. Well, Suki says thank you. Suki, she says thank you. I promise. She's just tired right now.
To a vast underground complex below.
But let's check out Bechtel. This company owns everything.
Along with Area 51, Bechtel controls Los Alamos, Lawrence Livermore, and a host of the most sensitive nuclear weapons facilities for the U.S. Department of Energy. Defining the word cronyism, the Bechtels have lorded over White House political decision-making for decades, especially administrations headed by Nixon, Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, and Bush Jr. It was Bechtel that was awarded the no-bid contract for Hurricane Katrina relief. Bechtel is where our tax dollars go to die. George Shultz and Caspar Weinberger are Bechtel alums, and so are former NATO Supreme Allied commanders. Among Bechtel's many major construction projects are countless oil platforms, refineries, and pipelines, including the Alaska Pipeline and countless tracks of railroad, including the entire BART urban transit system in San Francisco. Bechtel and its partners built the Hoover Dam project and the ARCO experimental breeder reactor, which produced the first ever electric power from a nuclear source, leading to Bechtel gathering the largest contracts for the biggest nuclear power plants worldwide.
What I wonder is, like, you know, let me fix my camera. These massive companies that like own everything, like, I don't know. I was just thinking today that like when you're in that position, you know, like I feel like us people, you know, it's easy to feel like you're getting screwed by these massive companies, which to be fair, like we are. But I try to think like when you're in that position, like I feel like they're not actively, they mustn't actively be sitting there like Mr. Burns going like, yes, we're gonna screw all these plebs. But I just feel like when you're like doing that stuff, you're so far removed from regular people that you don't even like understand what you think is just like acting in your best interest actually affects like 90% of the planet who are just regular people living regular lives. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, I mean, I could be naive and wrong, but surely these people, like, you know, aren't just sitting up there twiddling their fingers like Mr. Burns, trying to like, you know, screw the world over. Surely not. Tell me I'm right, please.
Unfortunately, numerous hazardous waste violations, ballooning profits in Boston's Big Dig, outrageous behavior in the reconstruction of Iraq, inciting Bolivians to riot against Bechtel, which was trying to privatize the water supply, and members...
Okay, well, the video just answered my question. They tried to privatize the water supply and are somehow involved in Bohemian Grove. Okay, well, they are Mr. Burns, and yep, everything I just said is wrong.
In the Trilaterals, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the Bohemian Grove has not endeared Bechtel to the vast population of tax-paying Americans. In terms of financial transparency, Bechtel is not. As a private, multinational corporation with a jaw-dropping list of subsidiaries, Bechtel is much more opaque than all publicly held multinationals, having no need to go public for money. Only big oil money like Avery Rockefeller's money is capable of behaving like this. Now Bechtel wants control of the world's fresh water supplies. Bolivia told Bechtel, no way in hell. Area 51's main runway is 30,000 feet long, nearly 6 miles, which when compared to runways where the space shuttle lands, which are barely half that size at 3 miles, makes Area 51's runway seem extreme.
6 mile runway. 6 mile runway. What the hell? That's huge. That's like nearly 10 kilometers. I mean, what are you landing there? The Aurora? That's crazy.
Area 51's southern hangars have held the A-12 Oxcart and the SR-71 Blackbird, and likely craft much more exotic. The northern hangars, or Red Hat hangars, house what is dubbed captured foreign technology, which is disassembled and blueprinted.
Okay, now we're getting a bit more interesting. D says that for the old UFOs, it takes a while to take off. What if the B-2 bomber is like early UFO tech that still has to take off, but once it's up, it has some form of like electrogravitic assistance? Because apparently that thing can fly around the world without refueling, so that sounds a bit strange. I'm not making any claims, I'm just saying.
Other buildings and facilities allow for on-site avionics modification. But below the buildings is a deep underground tunnel complex with tunnels 30 feet high and 70 feet wide.
Here we
and
go.
What goes on there, only a few brave souls have ever shared.
This is like an alleged, well, this is not an alleged map, it is a map of alleged tunnel bases. And you guys can't see my mouse, but it looks like that central point where a lot of them are teeing out from is Dulce, New Mexico, where Phil Schneider allegedly fought aliens, to put it simply.
Publicly. Most personnel choose to enjoy the privileges of a top-secret base. Key personnel are spoiled with lavish meals at Sam's Place, a recreational facility for members of Club Fed. Worker housing buildings are on site for lower-level personnel that live on the base. The most insidious of the dangers for the lower-level Area 51 workers was the chemical contamination from waste burned in open pits and trenches at Groom Lake. In 1994,
this part's wild. Few people are saying I'm on point with what I'm saying about the B-2. Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, I think even in the Phil Schneider video that we did, he says all the craft, but he specifically said the SR-71, like all those craft that have that black exterior is highly classified. I'll just say that. It's highly classified. I tried to look it up. So much of what makes the B-2 is classified. Like we can't even know how it does what it does. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like half a UFO and it's just like hiding in plain sight. Like I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying I would not be surprised. I wonder how you go from being a regular Air Force pilot to flying the B-2 bombers. I wonder if you have to get like heavily read in, you're sort of separated from other pilots. That's something worth probably looking into.
Jonathan Turley of George Washington University represented Area 51 widows of government contractors Walter Kazaa and Robert Frost and sued the Air Force and Environmental Protection Agency. Professor Turley demonstrated in court that high levels of dioxin, dibenzofuran, and trichloroethylene led to skin, liver, and respiratory failures and death in numerous Area 51 personnel. However, the United States Air Force responded by classifying all evidence of contamination in order to skirt the lawsuit, according to...
How crazy is that? They had a lawsuit against them for people getting sick or whatever the hell they were doing there, and put a lawsuit against the Air Force. And then the Air Force classified the information that was being used to prosecute them. That's like, it's kind of sad and scary, but it's also hilarious. Like, if you can do that, you can get away with whatever the fuck you want.
Congressman Lee Hamilton. Furthermore, the federal government invoked the state secrets privilege, citing the lawsuit as a threat to expose national security secrets.
We're going to sue you. Oh, really? Sorry, state secret. No, you're not.
U.S. Judge Philip Proe rejected the government's argument, so a Majestic 12 lapdog, President Clinton, issued a presidential determination exempting the Air Force's operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada.
Well, there you go. I think that confirms that Bill Clinton is in fact a reptile.
Clinton's action forced Judge Proe to dismiss the case for lack of evidence. Turley appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on the grounds that the federal government was abusing its power, but the Ninth Circuit refused Turley's appeal, and the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. 60 Minutes ran their investigative inquiry on March 17, 1996, in which Congressman Lee Hamilton stated, "I'm not personally prepared to take the word of a person who has, or an entity which has, a huge financial stake in the outcome here, that this information needs to be classified."
What a guy. I mean, isn't that so true? He's basically saying what we all know and think. Why would we listen to people who have a financial interest in us believing or following a particular narrative or outcome? Like, why would you trust them? Of course they're going to tell you what they want you to hear. That is not someone you should take advice from, ever.
Professor Jonathan Turley added, "The question is whether they are going to be held accountable, because ultimately that is what this case is about. Whether there is something unique about the United States government that either makes it accountable or exempt from its own laws."
Exactly. They're exempt from their own laws. So, sounds like a breakaway civilization to me. Because whose laws do you operate under? Not this civilization, apparently. So, does that just technically, if we're talking technically, that technically makes you a breakaway civilization, doesn't it? I mean, I feel like when we say breakaway civilization, we think about, people living in some like high technology over there somewhere else, which it could be too. But I think if we just were to like say what defines it, it would be a group that is not part of our rules and laws, and that is apparently what they are. And remember, this is old, and this is all still relevant today.
While Area 51 has produced aviation advances for the U-2, SR-71, F-117, B-2 stealth bomber,
UFOs.
It has also secretly produced the still unacknowledged TR-3Bs and Aurora spacecraft. And besides devouring hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe even trillions for its projects, the federal government is also turning a blind eye on billions of dollars of fraud and tax evasion by selected government contractors who are not claiming the true taxable value of their facilities to the Lincoln County tax assessor, who is not even allowed into Area 51 to perform his county's tax assessments. Area 51 has claimed only $2.5 million of property value to Lincoln County, even while accepting annual budgets in the billions of dollars from us, the American taxpayers. Dangerous underground atomic detonations, nuclear storage and waste concerns, the use of deadly force against civilians, lavish treatment of high officials, uncompensated chemical contamination of its workers, abuse of the law and its own power, tax evasion, and evidently secret extraterrestrial alliances.
Secret extraterrestrial alliances. I mean, like I said, I actually don't know the year that this was released. If I had to guess, I'm going to say mid-90s. But, we've looked at Phil Schneider, but like how wild was some of this shit sounded in the mid-90s, right? When you think of the culture and the access to information that people had at the time. Hearing this stuff back then would have, that's why people are like tinfoil hat lunatics, because it sounds it, especially when you would have had limited access to information back then. But now, in 2025, when we have all of these different whistleblowers, we have the ability with the internet to kind of see it all for ourselves and be like, all these people are independently saying the same thing. Kind of doesn't really sound that crazy anymore.
These improper government practices should impel Congress to hold open investigations into the nearly 60-year history of corporate and federal abuses at Area 51.
Area 51 is a big area. It has the Groom Lake Naval Auxiliary Airfield in the valley with the long runway and the dry lake bed, but through the mountain in the next salt valley south, and there's a mountain range in between. And between, there's a tunnel now that runs all the way from Groom Lake through to S4. It's about 8 miles through mountains. That tunnel is over, the tunnel is over 100 feet wide and nearly 100 feet from top to bottom. And that's where super secret aircraft are stored. It becomes a huge hangar. And the vehicles can be taken out either the S4 end or the Groom Lake end. S4 is where the hangars were built at the end of that tunnel on opening into the valley is where S4 facilities were built, and they were built into the mountain, but they were camouflaged. They had a side of the mountain slid aside and to make the doors. It rolled away and opened the facility, and that's how they took the captured vehicles in and out. Was they'd roll the door back and take them out, and when the Russian satellites had already passed or were not due, they bring them back in before the satellites were due again.
Had a $15 super chat here from Stevie. Says, hey, from WA, great work. B-2 pilots are chosen directly from flight school basic training. There are videos of them being chosen. Also, if the B-2 is classified, imagine the B-21. The B-21, when you look at the B-21 front on, it just straight up looks like a flying saucer. You would only know that it's not if you got some like height perspective on it. The thing literally looks like a UFO to the point that it's almost like they're teasing us. Or it's like, you know, how much further can they pretend that they're still an aeroplane until they just have to admit it? Like, bro, look, we know you've been like, we know the B-2 is actually a UFO and you tried to disguise it. You imagine if they're using like proper anti-gravity technology and they're just faking takeoffs to look like a plane, and then once they're up there, they can just be UFOs. Now that is a tinfoil hat conspiracy.
Did you ever hear talk about S4?
Let me explain something about Area 51. It was, at the time, simply a range as part of Camp Mercury. When you look at the map, you had areas such as Dutch 49, Area 50, Area 51. These were all part of the original Camp Mercury Atomic Test Site facility. So 51 was part of Camp Mercury initially. And while I was there, I was at the Department of Energy School. And the weekend in between, and some of the contractors who dined with us in the mess hall, we'd gotten to know pretty well. They were instructors as well. They said, look, let's all hop on the bus after breakfast on Saturday. They invited us to hop on the bus and show you guys something. So away we went on this fairly rickety old bus, one of the more modern, more comfortable ones. And down the road we went over a pass into Groom Lake from the other side, from the rear. Never went through the mailbox out on the road kind of garbage. We came in from the back over to Groom Lake.
Little sneaky backdoor entrance into S4. I wonder if we can drive through there ourselves. Probably wouldn't come back, but could be worth a try. Someone mentioned something about the B-2. I can't find it now. Oh, there we go. When the B-2 flies over on 4th of July, it is absolutely insane. It's basically silent and just slices the sky. Then you hear the sound after it's gone. That sounds awesome. I might be in Houston next year for the 4th of July, which is going to be sick. I really hope I see something like that, some kind of flyover. But yeah, those things are just straight up UFOs. But honestly, this is my own theory. I think the highest technology is in the submarines. That's my personal... Okay, here's this. Let me just throw this out here quickly. You know how people talk about... This is so out there, but look, I'm just throwing it out there. Okay, I don't even necessarily believe it. You know what looks like a cigar-shaped craft? A submarine. Okay, let's watch the video.
And they took us over to one of the facilities.
That's all I'm saying.
We got out of the bus. And anyhow, never made it to S4, but I heard the contractors talking about it. And some of them were contractors who were involved in the construction. They said that S4 had 30 levels. You take a 30-story building, put it in the ground. And that
30 stories deep, these things are. Virginia class is off its head. That's it. You know what I'm saying?
That's where apparently the aliens were. And some of the contractors had seen them.
What were their
but
descriptions?
They had not got very close to them. Well, they appeared to be kind of like grays, but not the little ones. These were 5.5 feet tall, or 6 feet even.
That's about as tall as Phil Schneider said they were. Interesting.
They were grays, and they had a fairly large eye, but they were not the little guys with the wraparound eyes.
Isn't that interesting how you hear people talk about that a lot, that like people say, yeah, they kind of look like grays, but sometimes you hear them say big eyes, and then other times you hear wraparound eyes. Like it actually seems like, and I guess it makes sense. God damn it. It makes sense that, you know, there are probably multiple subspecies of a species, right? Just like there are humans that are all humans, but some are, you know, African, some are Asian, some are Middle Eastern, some are Caucasian. Like it would make sense that there are like minor differences. Anyway, let's keep watching while I fix my camera.
Just to learn later that those little dudes are laboratory products.
Organic robots.
Yeah, they're organic robots, I guess is the best description.
I'm pretty sure that's what Stephen Greer subscribes to as well. The fact that they are, what does he call them? Programmed life forms, PLFs, are what the Greys are.
At the very bottom of this thing at S4, there was a gate.
Here we go.
A retired bird colonel shared with me. He said, I went down to the lower level, the third level, 30th floor. He says, they told me to put on a summer uniform, and it was wintertime. He went down, they had his luggage and suitcase and his briefcase and all. And he stepped through the doorway, and he came out, and he was at, what's the middle of Australia? Pine Gap?
Pine Gap?
Mm-hmm. He went through.
Isn't that so wild? It's, I mean, especially in the context that we watched it the other day with the stream, with that whistleblower, that Navy SEAL was talking about moon pools and that stargates were real, and that there's one from like Alaska to Hawaii. God damn.
Through a door at S4, and on the other side,
Australia.
Yeah.
So they already had teleportation at that
Which
point.
we were to learn later was just a mile and a half from one of the major UFO ET installations on the planet.
Someone says, the world needs more Stephen Greer is a gay Jewish spy podcasts. Yeah, that is a weird little, that's a very weird little piece of information that just kind of got thrown into things. And I feel like it was so weird that everyone was just kind of like, I don't really know what the fuck to do with this. So, okay, maybe he is. Continue.
Yeah. The ETs had a facility there from apparently over 100 years. The retired colonel told me, he said, you know, I was in a state of shock. He said, I didn't feel a thing. He said, I went through the door. I'm in S4 in Nevada. He says, the next thing I'm coming up, being led off to a private set of quarters in a facility that is in Pine Gap, Australia. And he said, it took me a while to adjust to it.
When we were sitting down together with
Crazy.
Bob Dean says he heard that S4 had 30 levels, which are 3 sections of 10 levels each, coded green, blue, and red.
This is interesting. Obviously, it's my understanding that S4 is the 4th level in this facility, right? The 4th level down. They are saying that S4 actually had 30 levels sectioned off into 3 sections of 10, labeled with color per section.
But I gather from your 10 days with Conor Ryan that he only knew about 4 levels.
He only knew about 4 levels.
And
he never saw anything at 3 or 4.
Do you subscribe to Bob Dean's description from somebody?
I don't have any information on the other levels.
Do you think they exist, or do you think there are only 4?
I don't know. If they exist, they would have been dug after the initial red light project that set up the facility there, the first 4 levels.
I think one of the things that impressed me the most about what the contractors would share with us is that they were in the tunnel building business, and they were digging tunnels all over the damn place.
Sounds like Phil
They had
Schneider.
these big 40-foot tunnel boring machines, on railroad tracks. They'd go into the side of a mountain.
I wonder. I mean, we'll never know, but I wonder if he is referring to Phil Schneider or if they ever spoke.
Literally. And they would go down and then out.
We'll never know.
And they were laughing one time. They said they were digging a tunnel and they ran into another tunnel, which they didn't know about. Really?
Oh, wow. Maybe he is talking about Phil Schneider because that sounds like his story.
And they said the tunnel they ran into was better than the one they were building. And we were, you're all perked up. And I said, yeah, what? He says, this thing was beautiful. He says, it was big and it was smooth and the walls were like glass. And he says, we built this damn thing. The ones we were building were, rough and not too ready. And we had to plaster them and finish them up a bit, cement and all to make them livable. But he says, we ran into a series of tunnels that were incredible. And what we were going to do is we were going to get a Jeep loaded up with, spotlights and water and whatever, and we were going to explore. And one of our senior supervisors, he said, found out about our plan and threatened to court-martial or put us all in jail. And he said, you stay the hell out of those tunnels. Those are not ours. Those are not for you to look at. Leave them alone.
Those are not ours. Leave them alone. Bro, we 100% live on top of aliens. I don't even care. I'm just going to say it.
And they said, all among themselves, who the hell built those tools, Well, who had the technology to build those that good? And here we are digging these things in.
Remember Michael Herrera said, everything critical to this world is underground? I thought he meant that in like a military sense. And he probably does to a degree, but I think he is talking about it in another way as well. Someone says, apparently Greer censored key info from Jonathan Weygant's testimony. That one is very telling. Interesting. That's a great story. And I think I would love to cover that in a video soon. But this stuff is going to take us a few days to get through. There's a lot to get through.
When I retired, we knew officially at my level of security that there were 4 different groups that we were interrelating with.
Here we go.
They were all humanoid, but only one was human, or at least so much like us that you couldn't tell the difference. Technologically, they are so far beyond this that we can't even imagine. And I think spiritually they are so far beyond. And I think those are the ones that are really calling the shots. I think those are the ones that are really in charge of the program. And you see,
I think you're right, Bob. I think Bob knew. I think the guy who held the highest possible clearance in NATO might know something. Maybe.
Other aliens, you see little grays, you see tall grays, you see tall whites, no hair at all. You even see, some of the people have described seeing reptilians. I don't deny that. I don't doubt that for a moment. But
damn. Ant people to the Hopi? That's right. People who come from underground. Yep. And all other cultures have very similar stories as well. It's crazy. It's also weird how all of these different species are all allegedly humanoid. Okay. And like Bob Dean is saying, only one of them actually looked kind of human. And he just touched on reptilians there. But there is like insectoids as well. But, they're so different to us, yet they're humanoid. It makes me wonder if are the chances that life evolves in all these other places that just all happen to have 2 legs and 2 arms? Or is it more like this structure is like the optimal structure for like a functioning, intelligent being to have a purpose and fulfill tasks, and therefore reptiles, insects, whatever else has been like spliced into that, let's just say like with an ape or like with that shape. Like whatever it is that is getting a genetic experiment gets spliced with a humanoid shape because that is the most efficient. Tinfoil hat's obviously required to even hear that question and answer it.
But I've concluded that the one group that seems to be running the program, at least on planet Earth, are the Anunnaki from Nibiru. Our cousins, our
Bob Dean's all in on Nibiru.
forefathers, that's it.
So it's possible that they had built those tunnels.
I think so. They said that there were tunnels all over the damn place. There were tunnels going from Groom Lake to Nellis, which is what, about 10 miles? Yeah. 20 miles. There were rumors that some of the tunnels went over to Fort Huachuca, which is in southern Arizona.
And you had been stationed there at one
And
time.
I had been stationed at Huachuca. And I knew there were some, mysterious goings on there. But anyhow, they said that there were tunnels all over the place. So when I hear these rumors about tunnels across the continent with high-speed rail, yeah, I'm not surprised.
So the Phil Schneider reports about underground tunnels and some of the maps that he provided, that kind of thing. Do you guys have problems with
No,
that?
it makes sense to me.
All right. So now we're going to hear from Phil Schneider for a little bit. This is kind of like a little... So this is actually in the footage that we're looking at, and it's kind of like a little splice of this talk that he did. This is Phil's last ever public appearance before he was found deceased in his home, after multiple times saying that he is not wanting to do that and that he loves his life, and that he knew that speaking about it would lead to that possibly happening. Now, the quality isn't great, but I do still want to cover this in its own video. But let's take a listen to what Phil had to say.
No, the chemical structure and the application.
I'm sorry that it's such shit quality. I know it is, but it is what it is, unfortunately. The version I have is much better quality, but this is just like a little montage.
Of construction value explosives. I earned a reputation on it. I helped hollow out over 13 deep underground military bases in the United States. I worked on the Malta project. I worked on West Germany on its military bases, in Spain on its, and Italy on its. Anyway, these 129
Wow, he's saying he did deep underground military bases in Europe as well. I did not know that.
bases, they've been building them day and night unceasingly since the early 40s. Some of them were built in the early 2000s. The average depth of each base is roughly a mile deep.
Mile deep.
Basic full cities followed out underground. They're somewhere between 2 and 2/3 cubic mile, 4 and a quarter cubic mile followed out underground. Bases comprised basically of large cities underground. They're connected by high-speed monorail magneto-leviton frames that can go up to Mach 2. Books have been written, several books recently have been written about this activity, all of which is verifiable through bibliography. Richard Souder's book, he's a PhD architect, and he's written, he alone also is risking his life by talking about this. He worked with a number of government agencies on.
Anyone read that book in the chat? Underground Bases and Tunnels by Richard Sauder? Anyone read that book? James Anthony says Schneider was assassinated in 96, I believe. James, I believe you are correct.
Deep underground military bases. I have helped build 2 main concerned bases within the United States that have some significance as far as what is it called the New World Order. Number 1 is Dulce, New Mexico. I was involved in 1979 in a horrendous firefight with alien human type, whatever you want to call them. And I was one of the survivors. I'm probably the only talking survivor you'll ever hear. 2 other survivors are under both guard somewhere in the United States. One is not in very good shape. He's been living in Canada. So I'm about the only one around that knows the firefight.
Dude, if this stuff is true, which you guys know I think it is, but make up your own mind, do your own research. I think this is true. And like, if it all ever really comes out and the world has to change radically and we have to come to terms with all of this wild shit, this man is like, make a statue of him. Seriously. If this all comes out and the world shifts very radically, make a statue of Phil Schneider.
That knows all the detailed files of the entire operation. 66 Secret Service agents, FBI, and the like, Black Berets died in that firefight. I was there. My father...
If anyone doesn't know, his dad was a German U-boat captain and his dad came to America under Operation Paperclip. And that's another wild stat. Dad was a Nazi. And he openly talks sort of against Nazism, which is good. But yeah, just another wild, complicated statistic, right? That a captured Nazi's son who came over, a captured Nazi who came over in Operation Paperclip, his son was trusted to be building these deep underground military bases and coming kind of close to aliens. Like, that sounds like a weird thing to do. That sounds like a weird job to give the son of a prisoner that you captured from the enemy in the war. Don't you think? I'm not saying it's not true, but like, why was that allowed to happen? Not that I think there's anything wrong with Phil, but like, just, why was that allowed to happen? $20 super chat from Sumo Rides Again says, good stuff, bud. I always look forward to your content. Keep it fun. Thank you, man. I appreciate the support. It's a big super chat. I really do appreciate it.
I watched after Schneider. There's an interesting story about him. He fought on both sides of the war. When he was originally a U-boat captain, he was captured, came up, he was captured by the France, he was turned over to the United States Army.
Oh, Phil, I can't hear a word you're saying.
He was repatriated there.
We will watch this properly one day, guys. Like I said, I've got the whole thing, and it's much better quality.
He built a big fort in Fort Lauderdale, and taken us to like Philadelphia Navy Yard thereafter. He was an active machine as well as and then he got later became the doctor.
Yep.
Basically, he was involved with different kinds of concerns, such as A-bomb, Ink-bomb, the Philadelphia experiment, and these other kinds of projects.
The Philadelphia experiment. Okay, that's something that his dad was involved in. And that is a rabbit hole I really want to go down, because I don't know enough about it to comment on it too deeply, but I know that it's essentially got to do with a warship basically disappearing in front of people. And I believe it was like an experiment, okay, testing technology. But I think also it was the fact that it didn't just disappear, it teleported. I think that is the theory behind it. And I guess while we're talking about teleportation, I think Ashton Forbes is going to be coming on the live stream this weekend. And we're going to be talking about portals and teleportation and just kind of shooting the shit. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm not sure exactly what day, but that's happening this weekend. Poland Power says, Josh, did my bot comment piss you off last stream? I can't remember your comment, but no, it wouldn't have pissed me off, bro. If I said something that maybe seemed that way, just remember, I am a dry, sarcastic Australian, and I'm rarely serious.
His groundwork, he invented a camera, a high-speed camera that took pictures of the first atomic tests in Bikini Island on 12th of July, 1946, which I have original photographs of, which show unidentified flying objects fleeing the bomb site at a high rate of speed. Bikini Island at the time was infested with things in various depths of water. The natives always saw them. The natives had problems with their cattle. They were basically pigs, is what they raised. And
come on, Phil.
And other things, although this story has never come out, this is basically what happened. Maybe somebody knows a senator or a congressman or has had help by such. There's one outstanding in Oregon. His name is Mark Hatfield. That man helped me fight the federal government. See, my father left me these pictures of what he took at Bikini Island. Operation Crossroads. And I'm going to have this one out on the table. It's the original. I'll ask you please carefully handle it.
If anyone wants to actually see that picture up close, if you, after my stream, go to my Phil Schneider deep dive video, because I've got the full quality of it there.
Try not to put too many fingerprints on it. Right over here, and I'll point to it, Hey, David. It is a structure, it is an unidentified flying object. This was taken 12th of July, 1946. Federal government at that time, knew all about flying saucers, what they were and what their agenda was, and how they want to control us by world domination. Without question, they knew about it. UFOs really wasn't my bag until I started working at Area 51.
I think this is getting a little bit better now. He said UFOs weren't my bag until I started working at Area 51.
It's down on Dallas Air Force Base north of Las Vegas, Nevada. The Guardians of Stealth. There are over 3 distinct classifications of special police used to guard one of our most well-kept secrets. Number 1. This is the most disturbing of all. The MJTF, and that, by the way, that stands for Military Joint Tactical Force, otherwise known as the Black Berets. Some people call them the Delta Force, and there are other names for it. A multinational tactical force primarily used to guard the various stealth aircraft worldwide. Stealth aircraft, for instance, the F-117A, there's 157 of the son of a guns going around. You know their sole purpose is? They're all loaded with LIDAR, L-I-D-A-R, and SEER, computer-enhanced imaging radar. They can fly over your house. They can see you walking from room to room.
I think I'm pretty sure he just said the F-117A. The Nighthawk. I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about here. He's saying the F-117 can fly over your house and LiDAR in and see you walking around your own home. And remember, F-117 was built, I'm going to say mid to late 70s, because it was flying as a secret operation. Like it was a classified aircraft in the 80s. So it was probably built in the 70s, right? LiDAR could see into your home and watch you move. That's 50-year-old technology.
They can tell if you've got an old antique rifle on your mantelpiece. They can see objects in the house with a variation limit and capability of 1 inch to 30,000 miles. That's
operational in the 1980s. Exactly. So, like, think about this, right? You've got the F-117A Nighthawk, a classified aircraft performing, stealth missions in the 80s. That plane is still kind of like, not really shown off, but like when you look at kind of stealth aircraft and like high-tech skunkworks products, that's still what we see. Bro, whatever they're actually flying, whatever the new classified program is, it's a UFO. Let's just say what it is. No, I don't actually know that for sure, but it probably is.
How accurate this is. Is this the proper use of our tax money? I would say not. The Black Budget is a secretive group, basically a secret budget. It garners 1/4 of the gross national product, the entire gross national product of these United States. Present, the gross national product is around $5 trillion. 1/4 of that, about $1.25 trillion per year.
I don't know if you guys listened to Richard Dolan on Jesse Michaels. I haven't quite finished the whole podcast yet, but he talked about how when Catherine Fitz got into the government and was doing kind of her role, looking to like audit the finances, they basically told her, no, you can't do that. And she put her foot down and was like, no, like that's my job. Like, show me the files, show me the papers. And it was such a mess that she said like a whole team of the best accountants in the world couldn't audit this. It's almost like this system was designed to be untrackable, to be like, to not be able to work it out. That's how much of a mess the United States budget is. And I think that was like between Clinton and Bush era. Okay, so I don't know, it's that like early mid-90s or something. I'm sure it's only gotten worse.
At least 1.023 trillion, and I say at least, is used in black budget programs like deep underground military bases. Presently, there are 129 deep underground military bases in these United States. Still, 68% of the U.S. military budget is directly or indirectly affected by the black budget. Star Wars, otherwise nicknamed Star Wars, strategic.
This video specifically of Phil Schneider is from 1995. And a $10 super chat from Aaron Oasis. He didn't leave a message, but Aaron, thank you, bro. Appreciate the support, man.
Defense initiative. relies heavily upon stealth weaponry. By the way, none of this would have been available without us taking apart with a fine-tooth comb crashed flying saucers that either we downed or they crashed themselves into our deserts.
Probably both.
None. Budget from U.S. Congress 5-year plan that we're told about is $247.6 million. You couldn't buy the spare parts of all the black helicopters and the F-117As and the B-1, the B-2 bomber, and all the other 20, 24, 25 prototypes. Couldn't even get the nuts and bolts of that. So we've been lied to, folks, and I know we can do better. Black budget garners this figure, roughly $1.25 trillion every 2 years. Trillion. I'm not talking billion, folks. Trillion.
I think it's like almost unfathomable to imagine how much just $1 trillion is. And we're talking multi-trillions. Like that, and it's like just missing. Whoops. You know how some people like drop a $50 note and they're like panicking? Trillions. And no one's got answers. No one's being held accountable. And life just goes on.
Don't know what a trillion is. It's 1,000 billion.
There you go.
It's a big number.
1,000 billion. $1,000 billion. And this is in 1995, so it's much more than that now. But like, it's like trying to think about how big is space. Like, you just can't.
If you were to regard that in dollar bills, it would be 11 tons of dollar bills. That's how big a trillion is. Okay, the black budget literally means hidden budget. The U.S. Congress never sees the books of this clandestine pot of gold. Contractors of stealth, and I've listed quite a few here. EG&G, Westinghouse, McDonnell Douglas, Morrison Knudsen, Wackenhut Security Systems, Boeing Aerospace, Lorimar Aerospace, Aerospatiale of France, Mitsubishi of Japan, also Mitsubishi Heavy Electric Industries.
When you always hear, like in these videos, people listing off all the military contractors that we always hear, like Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, which is Stephen Greer's uncle's company, by the way, if anyone didn't know, Lockheed Martin. It's like it feels like like the naughty boys list, the naughty boys in class. They always just get their name read out. That's what it feels like now, just like those same annoying names over and over.
Ryder Trucks, Bechtel, IG Farben, that's a chemical company, plus a host of hundreds more. I've talked about a number of topics that are rather controversial. I'm not advocating the overthrow of any government. I don't believe in such for the main reason. The number one, it always kills their own folks. But I believe if I have the chance to tell people about these atrocities, I think that there will be some serious letter writing, if not letter writing, some serious conscientious voting done in the very near future on various elected government officials, if not the whole category of elected government officials.
Bill Schneider was found murdered in his apartment in January 1996, less than 1 year after this lecture in Idaho, which was in 1995. Bill Schneider, born in 1947, very interesting year, and dead pretty much 50 years later. Rest in peace. Crazy stuff, right? Kat Simpson's finally made it. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Kat. Yeah, wild stuff. And so there's 4 total Phil Schneider lectures that are out there. We've looked at one of them, and I think we'll do another one soon for sure. I think we're all Phil fans here in the chat. So I think there's a little section here called Cosmic Top Secrets of Level 2 in S4.
Now, the construction of S4 happened then after the construction of Groom Lake.
S4 followed Groom Lake, yes.
Okay, so describe what you know about the construction of S4, how that occurred.
Well, they started tunneling from Groom Lake back into the mountain for secure facilities. And they kept tunneling over the years. They kept tunneling till they came out the other end down there. And that's where they put the captured alien vehicles, but that's where our most secret aircraft were stored too, is right next to the captured vehicles up the tunnel towards Groom Lake.
How is Bob Lazar connected to S4?
It's really interesting hearing these guys talk about Bob Lazar, especially in this era. And the back end of this video, basically like the last 10 minutes, is all Bob Lazar footage from, I'm going to say, when did he come out? Like 89 or something? So this footage would be, probably mid-90s.
Bob Lazar was hired to do some back engineering on a certain disk. He called it the space sport model. But when we got to look at the outline of the disk, it was very close to the shape of the version 2 flying disk that Billy Meyer was photographing in Switzerland. Bob Lazar.
Billy Meyer. That's a thing I've not really dug into enough. But I think we probably should, especially if we're going to talk about the whole Grush, Eric Burleson, Tall Whites, and Trump thing, which I would like to talk about, by the way. I haven't spoken about it on the channel yet. It's nighttime here. We're going to be doing the next part of this stuff tomorrow night, but maybe tomorrow morning we could jump on quickly for a quick stream and talk about the whole Grush, Burleson saga. If anyone out there watching has the links to, the stories and the clips, get in our Discord, drop them to me, because it'll help me throw something together for tomorrow morning.
I said the seats were smaller. They were for smaller people than him. There was only 3 seats. Billy described 3 seats aboard the craft. The outside shape was very much the same. Led us to speculate on where that craft came from.
Here we go. By the way, how good's like the entrance here? Like I love the era of television. Bob rocking up in his like 80s convertible, gets out.
Hi, I'm Bob Lazar. During late 1988,
bit of swagger,
and early 89, I worked on the propulsion systems of extraterrestrial vehicles for the United States government. The hardware and technology I was exposed to should be placed in the proper hands of the scientific community, and it is the right of every person on Earth to know that there is physical evidence which proves that there is life elsewhere and that at least one form of that life has been here. I worked in a number of scientific programs.
I love that too. Like cuts to the next one. He's like at the sign of the physics facility, but he just keeps rolling like that 90s physics scientist swagger.
Some of which require top secret and above top secret security clearances, of which the most easily verifiable is my early 1980s job here at the Los Alamos Mason Physics Facility in Los Alamos, New Mexico. While working at Los Alamos National Lab in 1982, the local newspaper did a front page story on a jet car I had built. Coincidentally, Dr. Teller was giving a speech in Los Alamos that same day. We met and had a short chat about the jet.
Just put up a poll in the chat, by the way. Do you believe Bob Lazar? Just a simple one, yes or no. Just interested to gauge how people feel.
Car, and I later listened to his speech. I never met Dr. Teller again, but in 1988, when I decided to re-enter the scientific community, I sent him a resume and inquired about a job. Dr. Teller responded by telephone and told me that he was no longer active, but just functioned in a consultant capacity. He gave me the name of a contact to call in Las Vegas. I made that call, and things progressed from there until I got into the program. I never got a chance to ask Dr. Teller if he remembered me from Los Alamos, so I don't know if that was a factor or not.
And if I ask you on camera if you know Bob Lazar, can you just say no?
I will sit silently.
Interesting.
In May of 1987, some scientists took an antimatter reactor to an underground blast facility on the Nevada test site to perform an experiment.
94% people saying yes, they believe Bob Lazar. I mean, yeah, I believe Bob Lazar. And the reason why is because who makes up a lie in the 80s, gets torn to shreds for it for 20 years, gets their life ruined, hounded by authorities, and keeps saying it if it's not true? You didn't make any money for it. Why would you? Why would you? It's as simple as that for me. You wouldn't.
Fortunately for them, their experiment required them to cut the reactor open, which resulted in their deaths. This explosion was explained to others at the test site as a previously unannounced low-yield underground nuke test. I was hired in December of 1988 to replace one of these men. Between December of 88 and April of 89, I worked as a senior staff physicist in what has to be the most secret project in history. My place of work was a facility at an area known as S4 on the Nellis Air Force Range in central Nevada. Area S4 is located approximately 15 miles south of the infamous Area 51 installation at Groom Lake, where the U-2 and SR-71 spy planes were developed.
Yeah, people bring up the brothel stuff, right? That he also ran a brothel, which I'm pretty sure he did. But okay, what? So now you're a liar. I think that was the perfect reason why he had that. He was easily discreditable, right? Because of that. It's the perfect person to bring in. And if you need to, you can just write him off and say that he's just some weirdo who owns a brothel or whatever. But to me, like, just because you own a brothel doesn't mean you're a liar. Like, that's kind of silly.
The duration of my employment at S4, I was paid by the United States Navy.
Here we go.
About this same time, Dr. Edward Teller, who's known as the father of the hydrogen bomb, figured out that a nuclear fusion bomb was possible. This is the same bomb that was dropped on Nagasaki August 9, 1945. Fusion would release even more energy and cause an even bigger explosion from the same amount of nuclear material. Much to Dr. Teller's dismay, the Japanese surrendered, we never dropped the hydrogen bomb, and Dr. Teller's been in a bad mood ever since.
Is there any other nuclear reaction besides fission and fusion that you know?
Like, this guy's body language is just insanely guilty and not, like, you can just tell he's uncomfortable and he doesn't want to speak. He doesn't want to answer truthfully. I mean, first of all, he's like, what, 80 plus, and he's chewing on his glasses. That's weird. And he does a classic thing that I've noticed a lot of people do when they don't want to answer a question, or they get asked a question that they're unsure how to answer. They pretend like they don't hear you to stall time so they can think of something to say instead. And that's exactly what he's just done here. He's gone chewing on his glasses like, Like, okay, bro, tell me you're sus without telling me.
Anything such? Look, please, you try to explore the things about which I already will have to tell you. It is not interesting in today's time. Plutonium, look, it is, in my opinion, not interesting. I don't intend to answer it. If you ask me that question on camera, I will shut up. I will see.
You're saying he doesn't want to be asked on camera. Remember, that's exactly what, remember when, well, I mean, the videos, it's an older video that didn't get many views, but I did a deep dive on the moon landing, right? And we looked at footage of the Apollo 11 astronauts being interviewed by Bart Sabrell, who is a bit of a douchebag, admittedly, but he's asking these guys questions on camera about the moon landing, and he's wanting to show them footage, and they're all squirming, saying like they don't want to do it on camera. They don't want to do it on camera, which is just such sus behavior, right? Like, you would think an astronaut who went to the moon and achieved the greatest achievement of mankind, still to this day, would want to watch that video back and watch it fondly and recount their memories and you know, talk about all the little bits that they remember that was, you know, they're full of pride and you know, reminiscing. But instead, Buzz Aldrin punched him, and Edgar Mitchell threatened to get the CIA to kill him. Seems like honest behavior.
You're not going to get an astronaut on that. Okay.
To demonstrate the explosive power of antimatter, let's pick a random area where an atomic bomb might explode. Oh, let's say Iraq. And for demonstration purposes, let's say an atomic bomb would explode, for instance, in, Baghdad. Well, if one of our older atomic bombs exploded in Baghdad, the area of total devastation, which is indicated by the red dot on the map, would be approximately 2 miles. This would be caused by a fission reaction in which less than 1% of the nuclear material is converted to energy. But if a hydrogen bomb containing the same amount of nuclear material as the Nagasaki bomb were to explode in Baghdad, the area of total devastation would be approximately 20 miles.
People said, I think they went, but they saw things up there. Yeah, I think, God, who was saying that recently? I think, like, you know, a lot of people say they were followed to the moon, there were things on the moon, and they were followed back. And that not even just the Apollo 11 astronauts, but other astronauts all kind of swear some kind of secrecy, even just to missions to the space station. There are things in space that they see that they can't talk about. I think that's pretty well known. And again, in that deep dive video, go and check it out if you haven't seen it. But we looked at the footage of Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong at that conference when they came back. Neil Armstrong looks like someone has a gun to his head and is forcing him to, like, tell his wife that he hates her or something like that. And Buzz Aldrin looks like a straight up CIA agent that's trying to, like, he looks like a G.I. Joe that's, like, in mission mode. It's weird. They do not look like people who have just come back from the greatest achievement of mankind at all. They look like hostages. $5 from Toxic Fart, and he says, Bob said he was helping a friend who happened to be a prostitute. Also, Stan Romanek got exposed and no longer talks about being visited. Interesting. Thank you for the $5, my bro.
Now, if a bomb was made with the same amount of nuclear material as the Nagasaki bomb, and that material was antimatter, when that bomb exploded in Baghdad, the area of total devastation would include parts of Africa, Europe, and Asia, with the exact area of total devastation being very difficult to calculate. This demonstrates the enormous amount of power released when you totally convert matter to energy, which is what happens when antimatter and matter are combined.
Ooh.
I had at least partial views of the 9 different disks out at Area S4, but the one I'm going to describe to you now is the one in which I not only saw 2 of the 3 interior levels, but I also saw it fully functional in flight. And no, unfortunately, I didn't get to go for a ride in it. This particular disk appeared to be in excellent condition, and because...
Isn't that wild that like Bob Lazar is saying that he saw it in flight? He's seen this thing in flight.
Of its sleek appearance, I
mean, not that I think that's like new information or anything, but like it's just kind of crazy.
Named it the Sport model. The Sport model is about 16 feet tall and 40 feet in diameter. The exterior skin of the disc is metal, which is the color of unpolished stainless steel. The Sport model sits on its belly when it's not energized. As you can see, the hatch is located on the upper half of the disc with just the bottom portion of the door wrapping around the center lip of the disc. The interior level of the disc is divided into 3 levels. The lower level is where the 3 gravity amplifiers and amplifier guides are located. The reactor is located directly above the 3 gravity amplifiers on the center level and is in fact centered between them. The reactor is similar to this half-scale model. The element 115 is machined into triangles like this and is then inserted into the reactor. This piece of element 115 is the source of the gravity A wave as well as the target that is bombarded with protons to release the antimatter. The gravity amplifiers of the disk can be focused independently and they are pulsed and do not stay on continuously. The center level of this disk also houses the control consoles and seats, both of which were too small and too low to the floor to be functional for adult human beings. The walls of the center level are all divided into archways. At one point in time, when the disk was energized, one of the archways became transparent and you could see the area outside of it just as if the archway was a window. After the panel had been transparent for a while, a form of writing, which was unlike any alphabetic, scientific, or mathematical symbols I've ever seen, began to appear on the transparent archway.
William Keaton makes a really good point, saying looking back at this whole presentation from Bob Lazar, it seems weirdly professional, and it does. I do agree with that, but I wonder what the context is. I wonder what the context is because I know he came out to protect himself, so perhaps this was part of some kind of presentation to like get what he knew out there into the public as some kind of protection, I guess. And my man Built on Sound has just become an official weirdo. Welcome to the members club, my bro. It's been a while. Thanks for coming. Can we see some Polarity loves and hearts in the chat for our latest weirdo? Thank you, bro. Appreciate you.
And I was never informed as to how all of this was achieved, not that any of that would have required alien technology. I was never given access to the upper level of the disk, so I can't enlighten you as to what the porthole-like areas are, other than I can assure you that they're not portholes. Now, before I go any further about the disk, I'm going to show you where and under what circumstances I saw it tested. My job in this program was to be part of a back engineering team. Back engineering is the act of taking a finished product and tearing it apart to find out what makes it tick. The goal in this program was to see if the technology of the disk could be duplicated with Earth materials. With the remaining hardware and information, the U.S. government started the back engineering program. When I went to work, I was flown from McCarran Airport in Las Vegas to Area 51, which is a highly secure government base on the Nevada test site. Area 51 is located about 125 miles north of Las Vegas, near the Groom Mountains and the Groom Dry Lake bed.
He came out to protect himself. George helped him, but then he got a lot of questions, and in my opinion, this is his attempt to answer all the questions on his credibility, a summary of everything he knows. Yep, that does make a lot of sense. I mean, you could imagine, right, when that interview broke with George Knapp, people would have been going like, what about this? What about that? How do you know this? How do you know that? It would make sense that this is like a presentation to just like be like, okay, rather than try and answer you all individually, here it is. And we just got another weirdo, Lacey, unredacted. Thank you for joining the Polarity Members Club. Again, some Polarity love and hearts for our latest weirdo, Lacey.
Area 51, I was bused to an even more highly secure facility located about 15 miles south of Area 51 called S4. S4 is situated at the base of the Papoose Mountains by the Papoose Dry Lake bed. The airspace around S4 is restricted, and if any unwelcome aircraft strays into the outer sector, they radio the pilot and instruct him or her to leave. If that pilot continues and strays into the middle sector, jets will be scrambled to escort the intruding aircraft out. If for any reason whatsoever that aircraft penetrates into the inside sector before jets can be airborne, ground-to-air missiles will neutralize the intruder. The S4 installation is built into the mountain, and the 9 hangar doors are angled at about 60 degrees. These doors are covered with a sand-textured coating to blend in with the side of the mountain and the desert floor.
Interesting. Quick little note here. This is a story that I remember my friend telling me a long, long time ago. Like, I reckon we were in high school, and his dad was like a bit of a conspiracy theorist. And I'm pretty sure his dad told him that when he went out to Area 51 or like somewhere around there and was kind of like sniffing around the perimeter, driving, I believe, that like a craft that was black and silent came up next to him and was like moving alongside him, but was silent, and that he could see someone in it, and it was telling him to like go away, essentially. That's a very old story that may not have the details correct, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. Maybe it sounds like something someone's heard of, but it's pretty wild. And I don't know exactly if it's perfectly correct, but something like that. $2 from Alpha Draco says, thank you, Josh, for everything you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for always dropping in the streams, mate. I always see your name there, so appreciate that. Thank you.
The hangar was equipped with typical tools and extensive electronic equipment. It also had a machine with an X-ray emblem on it and an overhead crane rated at 20,000 pounds. Equipment in this hangar was marked with a black number 41 with a white circle around it. It was outside of this hangar that I saw the sport model tested. The space-time distortion around the disk achieves maximum distortion and is folded up into this heart-shaped form. The disk can't be seen from any vantage point, and for all practical purposes is invisible. All you could see would be the sky surrounding it. The program out at Area S4 consisted of 3 projects: Project Galileo, Project Sidekick, and Project Looking Glass. Project Galileo dealt with gravity propulsion, and Project Sidekick dealt with a beam weapon that had a neutron source and was focused by a gravity lens. Project Looking Glass dealt with the physics of seeing back in time.
Whoa, that is wild. That's something we should look into that. I think we should look into that.
Now, I was not personally involved with the hardware of Project Sidekick or Looking Glass.
Cabal secrets. Okay. We only got 2 minutes left of this video, guys. This is the last bit.
A small segment of the United States government that makes scientific and technological judgments from a knowledge base that is not available to the general public.
That sounds like what Bob Lazar just said there sounds like what Matthew Brown spoke about, the AI that they use to kind of make decisions and predict future outcomes.
If the following information is true, the United States government also makes judgments on a historical, philosophical, and even theological level from a knowledge base that is not available to the general public. These are excerpts from some of that information. As part of my indoctrination into the program at S4, I would randomly be taken into a small room which contained a table, a chair, and 120 or so briefings in blue folders. I'd be left there to read for varying amounts of time, usually about half an hour. These briefings contained a wide spectrum of information, mostly relating to aliens and alien technology. These reports appeared to be an overview of alien information which can be used to brief scientists from any field about the scope of the whole project, and not just their specific field of endeavor. The overview of Project Galileo was accurate. I read the overview and later witnessed evidence which proved it to be accurate. So it is possible that scientists involved with other projects could have seen evidence that these other overviews were also accurate, but I can't make that assertion. To me, these reports were simply words on paper. So to keep from saying allegedly and supposedly in every sentence, I'll relay this information to you as I read it, since I've already put this disclaimer on it.
I don't remember this much detail. How could he know all this, and how could he even make it up? And that's another thing, is that his information is dense and it hasn't changed for a long time. Like, that's if you're making shit up and it's such a dense, convoluted story like this is, you're probably going to struggle to keep it all together for 30 years. And on top of that, the things he has said have been corroborated in certain ways by other people. So again, what are the chances of that you just made up some bullshit and then all of a sudden other people start to come out with things that kind of relate to it and it all makes sense? I mean, I think if you think critically, it's kind of clear that Bob Lazar he's telling the truth.
Technology that you've learned about thus far was brought here by some alien beings from the Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 star system.
And again, what he's relaying here, like, he's not saying this as truth. He's saying what he read. And he's clear about that too.
These stars are located in the constellation of Reticulum, which can only be seen from the southern hemisphere. Zeta Reticuli is a binary star system, which means it is 2 stars, and is located approximately 30 light years from Earth. These beings are from Reticulum 4, which is the 4th planet out from Zeta Reticuli 2. The beings are 3 to 4 feet tall and weigh 25 to 50 pounds. They have grayish skin and large heads. These beings said that man was the product of externally corrected evolution. They said that man, as a species, had been genetically altered 65 times. They refer to humans as containers, yet I don't know what we're containers of. As I'm sure you now know, it was impossible for me to corroborate the information in the second section. And obviously, if this information is true, the ramifications are far-reaching, and you don't have to be a nuclear physicist to figure that out.
There we go. There we go. That is it for episode 1 of our Secrets of S4. I don't know exactly how many episodes this is going to be, but I think it's going to be at least another 3, at least. Like I said, guys, if anyone kind of has the source of what's been going on, I know it's a little bit late, the source of what's been going on with Jimmy. Okay, we just got a whole bunch of memberships. D has just gifted 5 memberships. Guys, if you just received a membership from D, give him some love. We got a whole bunch of new weirdos coming in. Can we please get a whole lot of love and hearts in the chat for all of these new weirdos? Welcome to the Polarity's member club, guys. We have your own section in the Discord, and you also get access to members-only content as well. Wow, look at that. What an absolute legend. Thank you, D. I appreciate that. So, if anyone has the clips and the sources for the whole Grush, Burleson, Trump, Tall White things, I want to talk about that. I'd love to talk about it in the morning tomorrow. Join the Discord. The link is below. Everyone is welcome to join the Discord, by the way. If we can throw a show together for tomorrow morning, I will. And we'll talk about that. And tomorrow morning, after that stream, I will stream an episode of Stargate. I'm not going to do it now because it's getting late. I'm going to go to bed. Got to keep the sleeping routine in check. But tomorrow morning, if we can get a show together, we'll watch Stargate as well. But if that doesn't happen, we will be live again tomorrow night at the same time with basically part 2. And tomorrow is going to be the whistleblower. Okay, the whistleblower that was used by the CIA to take people out and worked as a sentry at S4. Super creepy, super interesting. I'm going to say most of you guys probably haven't seen it, but you're going to really like it. So tune in again, same time tomorrow. I might see you in the morning, but if not, take care, get outside, touch grass, and I'll see you guys then. Take care.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.